Hey everyone, I want to tell you about Cozy Earth. It's the world's softest sheets. They keep you cool, dry, and comfy all night long. They're moisture wicking, breathable, and they even get softer with every wash. They have PJ sets. Who can't get behind PJ sets? Valentine's is coming up. Get your wife a pajama set. It's Oprah approved. They have free shipping on orders over $50 and a 100-night sleep trial on those bedding sets and a 10-year warranty. And right now, our listeners get to save 40% off using our code INFOGO at CozyEarth.com. Find the link in the show notes. Luxury, comfort, and cool sleep await you at CozyEarth.com. Welcome to the podcast. I'm William.
And I'm Kat.
And that makes this a dash of info.
Yeah, little things you want to know.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Green Children of Woolpit?
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was a listener request, but I cannot remember for the life of me where it came from. Because I too have never heard of this.
Oh,
But I think before we start with any of this, I think we should really tell our listeners where Woolpit is. You want to take that on?
sounds good. It is a small village in Suffolk, England, in the East Anglia region. It's located in eastern England, about 8 miles east of Bury St Edmunds, roughly 70 to 75 miles northeast of London, surrounded by flat farmland typical of, medieval agricultural villages. And in the 12th century, Woolpit would have been a quiet rural settlement known for its wolf pits, deep traps dug to protect livestock, which is exactly where the Green Children were said to have appeared.
Wolf pits? I think that is interesting all on its own. Like, I have never heard of wolf pits either.
They were fierce, I guess.
I'm guessing, but like you said, in the 12th century in England, in this village of Woolpit, two children appeared mysteriously green-skinned, speaking a language no one understood, and surviving on nothing but raw beans. Well, all right, who were they? Where did they come from? And why did this story, well, I guess really, why does this story endure for centuries? First of all, how many kids do you know that would just eat raw beans?
Not many. Not me.
Yeah, honestly and truly, if this is folklore or some kind of historical mystery, it may even be something stranger, but yeah, green skinned kids speaking a foreign language, eating nothing but raw beans. Come on now.
Right, right. So, like kind of like we said, the story unfolds in 12th century Suffolk during the reign of King Stephen, which was from 1135 to 1154. And there was a chaotic civil war period later called the Anarchy. England had no clear ruler, nobles fought each other for power, and law and order often depended on whoever controlled the nearest castle. Chroniclers of the time famously wrote that Christ and his saints slept, which was a telling phrase that captures just how unstable life felt at that time.
Wow, that Christ and his saints slept. That tells you that's a pretty brutal time.
Right.
Village life in Woolpit was, well, it was a small farming village. Life revolved around the agricultural calendar, planting, harvesting, church festivals, and most villagers never traveled more than just a few miles from their home in their entire lives. Anyone who spoke strangely, well, or dressed oddly or behaved differently would immediately stand out and often be viewed with fear or superstition.
Foreigners were rare, but not really unknown. Traders, pilgrims, and displaced people moved through England during wartime, but language barriers and unfamiliar customs often turned difference into danger. And in a world without passports or newspapers, rumor filled the gaps that knowledge couldn't.
Yeah, and the Green Children story, well, it survives because it was recorded by two respected medieval writers.
One of them was Ralph Cogshell, which was an abbot of a nearby monastery, included. the account in his chronicle around 1200, claiming it came from a credible local sources.
And the other was William of Newbury, and he was a more skeptical historian. Also, he retold the story, adding weight to its perceived authenticity.
Now, neither man witnessed the events themselves, but both relied on secondary testimony, written decades after the supposed appearance of the children.
Yeah, well, you ever played that game Telephone?
Hmm.
Okay. So the medieval chroniclers were not journalists in the modern sense, because their works, well, it blended observation, hearsay, religious symbolism, and moral teaching. So it was strange events were often perceived not because they were proven, well, but because they were meaningful. A story didn't have to be fully understood to be, well, worth remembering.
Right.
Gonna say it's kind of like the tabloids today, right?
Right. That yellow journalism, right?
Yeah, yellow journalism.
So the story of the Green Children. It was
Here,
villagers described the pair as a boy and a girl, small in stature, wearing clothing unfamiliar in cut fabric, unlike anything commonly worn in rural England. Most striking of all was their green tinted skin, pale but unmistakable, giving them an otherworldly appearance that immediately set them apart.
they're aliens.
Aliens.
They're aliens. I'm just saying. Um, when brought into the village, well, the children behaved in ways no one could explain. They spoke consistently, but in a language no villager recognized, neither Latin, French, nor any other known regional dialect of the time.
They refused bread, meat, milk, and ale, which were the staples of medieval diet.
Hold
For
on.
days,
So, all right, I just have a question here. So, we're giving the kids ale during this time?
yeah, evidently.
Okay, the meat I can kind of see, but the milk, the ale, the bread, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they don't really seem like real children to me.
No, not of the medieval times now.
Yeah, yeah.
For days they appeared to waste away until they discovered raw fava beans growing in nearby fields. They ate them eagerly, at first tearing the pods open and consuming the beans raw, as if unfamiliar with cooking altogether.
All right. So they refused cooked bread. They refused cooked meat. They refused milk. They refused ale, but they're gonna eat these fava beans raw.
Raw. Mhm.
Kat, this story's it's really strange.
It is. It is becoming very strange. What do fava beans taste like? Because I mean, I'll eat snap peas fresh off the vine.
Yeah, I'll eat snap peas. I'll eat green beans off the vine. They're good.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what a fava bean is. Maybe that's something we can do down the road.
Sounds good.
But
So,
it's still a
anyways,
bean. I mean, it's still a bean, right?
yes, yes, I'm sure the texture is very strange.
Yeah.
So, the strange diet became one of the most memorable and puzzling details of the story.
Yeah, and over time, the children were taken in and cared for, but the adjustment, well, it was harsh. The boy, well, he grew weaker and eventually he died, and often described as having fallen ill shortly after arrival. The girl, however, she survived, though chroniclers noted she was initially sickly and withdrawn.
As months passed, her green skin gradually faded into a normal complexion, and she learned to speak English, allowing villagers. Oh, she learned to speak English, allowing villagers to finally ask where she and her brother had come from. And her survival shifted the story from pure mystery to something deeply human.
I say before we get into the girl said that where they came from, I said let's take a small break.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
William, I know how you love matcha tea with coconut milk.
Yeah, it's clean energy without a crash.
Then you'll love Mantra Matcha. They offer super premium ceremonial matcha and 6 superfood infused flavors made from the finest, youngest tea leaves for a naturally sweet, ultra smooth taste.
With each flavor, it's infused with powerful superfoods like cacao, ginger, and goji berries. And they also have those classic favorites like banana cacao, strawberry lemon, cinnamon goji berry, plus superfood berry, ginger beet, and rosehip dragon fruit. It's organic, non GMO, gluten free with 0 grams of sugar. You can enjoy it like me, or maybe hot or in a smoothie like Cat. Every purchase helps provide meals to kids through No Kid Hungry.
It's at mantramatcha.com. Get 15% off using our code INFOGO at checkout. Both links are in the show notes.
Hey, everybody, we want to tell you about strong coffee. Every morning it starts with a choice. You can settle for just coffee, or you can rise up with strong coffee. And it's the world's strongest cup of joe. Strong isn't just a drink, it's a movement. It stands for striving to reach our natural greatness.
It's born from one simple need: to be better. They rebuilt coffee from the ground up, infusing organic coffee with collagen, protein, nootropics, and functional ingredients that fuel your body and sharpen your mind. No crash, no compromises, just clean energy, focus, and flavor that fires you up.
Yeah, so whether you're chasing kids, chasing goals, or chasing greatness, don't just do it with coffee, do it with strong coffee. And our listeners can save 20% off just by using our code INFOGO at checkout. Hey, if you're looking for your favorite band or sports team or TV show, check out Old Glory. They've been in operation since 1969 and they have over 300,000 items. They have from the Beatles all the way to Metallica, NFL, NBA. It really doesn't matter what you're looking for. They have tees, hoodies, hats, gifts, everything a true fan could ever want. And it's family owned and operated. They have fast shipping, free standard delivery on every order. And you know what? Our listeners get a 15% off at checkout using our code INFOGO. You can find the link in the show notes. So now that we're back, the little girl, she said their origin story was in St. Martin's Land. Uh, Once able to communicate, she offered an explanation that only deepened the mystery. She claimed they came from this place, St. Martin's Land, and this was a world where everything was bathed in twilight, with no bright sun as the villagers knew it, according to her anyway. And the people there were like them, and the land, well, it lay separated by a river from a brighter region far beyond.
This is getting interesting.
This is so, this is getting extremely interesting, right?
Absolutely. Some versions describe a moment when the children followed their herd, heard the sound of bells, and suddenly found themselves in Woolpit, unable to return. Whether underground, distant, or symbolic, St. Martin's Land sounded less like a country and more like a boundary between worlds.
So the veil was lifted.
Mm.
So folklore motifs, visitors from elsewhere, have you not? Stories of the children arriving from another world appear throughout European folklore. These figures often represent the other, right? Um, they're beings who don't quite belong, whose presence, well, it disrupts the familiar order. In medieval storytelling, such visitors were rarely random. They served as messengers, tests, or warnings, challenging the community to respond with fear, charity, or curiosity, kind of like what we had for this.
Right. And so the Green Children fit this pattern perfectly. They were young, vulnerable, strange, and depended on the villagers' response for survival. In medieval symbolism, the color green carried layered meanings. It could represent life, growth, and nature, but also instability and transition. So, green was associated with illness or imbalance in the body, youth and immaturity, the boundary between the natural and the supernatural, And in literature of the period, beings who were green or dressed in green often existed in liminal spaces, neither fully human nor fully otherworldly.
Yeah, so medieval villages viewed outsiders with a mix of fascination and suspicion. In a world where most people never left their birthplace, right? We just talked about they don't really go very far from where they were born. Um, Unfamiliar language or customs could easily become signs of danger or divine intervention. Strange arrivals were sometimes interpreted as omens from the gods, punishments, or tests. Wanderers meant to inspire humility. At the same time, though, curiosity about the unusual was genuine. Marvels, well, they were collected and shared not as entertainment, but as evidence that the world was larger and stranger than everyday life suggested.
The Green Children were not unique, though. Medieval chronicles are filled with accounts of mysterious visitors, including wild men found living at the edges of society, children raised by animals, travelers from distant, half imagined lands, and writers like Gerald of Wales and others cataloged such marvels alongside real events, seeing no sharp divide between history and wonder. To medieval audiences, these stories didn't need full explanations, they just needed meaning.
Yeah. When you was talking about that, I was thinking about Tarzan. What was the other one? The boy that was raised with the wolves? Was that Tarzan?
Mowgli,
Yeah, Mowgli. That's it. Mowgli.
the Jungle Book.
Yeah, the Jungle Book. Um, but one of the most widely accepted explanations places the Green Children within the turmoil of the 12th century migration and war. So during the anarchy, Flemish immigrants were invited into parts of England and later expelled or attacked during uprisings. And children were often separated from their families, which they could have wandered into unfamiliar villages. They would be unable to communicate because, they didn't really know the language.
Right. And their foreign clothing, unfamiliar language, and confusion would have made them appear utterly strange to isolated villagers, especially frightened ones.
Yeah, and then, so you got to put your mind in the medieval observers because they lacked that medical knowledge. But modern science, well, it offers some very plausible explanations.
Chlorosis, which is an iron deficiency anemia common in malnourished children, which can cause a pale greenish tint to the skin.
Yeah, and then you have chronic malnutrition, which would also explain their weakness, odd eating behavior, and why the boy likely more fragile and why he didn't survive.
As the girl's diet improved, her skin tone faded, quietly, supporting a natural explanation. And to explain the language confusion, what villagers described as an unknown language may simply have been a foreign dialect, maybe possibly Flemish or another regional tongue that was just completely unfamiliar to rural English ears. To people who had never heard another language spoken, it might as well have been from another world.
Absolutely. So, the most telling detail of what happened after the mystery fades, well, the surviving girl, she learned English. She adapted local customs, was eventually baptized, and she lived out her days in within the English society. Her story, well, it transformed from legend, to something that was miraculous, something that became deeply human. A child adapting, surviving, and being absorbed into a world that, well, she once feared, or a world once feared her, I guess, maybe both.
Right. Um, there's, of course, speculative and even paranormal theories. Despite rational explanations, the story refuses to stay grounded, and that's where speculation enters. Of course, there's alien interpretations.
They're aliens.
To modern audiences, the details are very tempting. The green skin, the unknown language, and a land without a visible sun. For some, this reads like an early account of extraterrestrial visitors, filtered through medieval understanding.
Hey,
Uh,
they could have been on one of those interstellar objects.
yeah, right, right.
How about otherworldly possibilities? Other interpretations lean into older mystic ideas, subterranean beings living beneath the earth, or, parallel worlds brushing briefly against our own, or in modern terms, interdimensional travelers. And these theories say less about medieval England and more about how each era reshapes the story to fit its own fears and fascinations. I think if it was interdimensional travelers, I think that would be very, very interesting.
I agree. I
I'm into
agree.
that kind of stuff, though.
Same. It's also been a pop culture legacy. The Green Children have inspired science fiction, fantasy worlds, paranormal investigations, and modern retellings that blur folklore and cosmic mystery. So each retelling keeps the children alive even as their meanings shift.
So, this story really endures because, well, it has a couple of things, right? It has fear, it has compassion, and it asks some very timeless questions. How do we treat those who seem different? Do we explain the unknown or imagine it? And what does our answer say about us?
The children became a mirror. In them, we see medieval fear of outsiders, modern fascination with the unexplained, and a universal human instinct to turn confusion into story.
Yeah, I personally I think that the children were lost to a different village during these wars. They fell to famine and found their way into this village. Honestly and truly, I think that's the more plausible explanation. The green tinted skin. Now, the girl stories, I can't explain that one.
No, me either. Uh,
You know, I guess really, were the Green Children of Woolpit simply misunderstood visitors from a distant land, or a cautionary tale, or just something far stranger? I guess you, the listener, get to decide, right?
right. And maybe the answer matters less than the fact that we're still asking. I don't know. What do you think? Let us know on Facebook or even email us.
Yeah, I mean, the Green Children of Woolpit. The wolf pits, those were that to me, that was the most mind-blowing part of the story. Like, I feel like this is going to be a dash somewhere down the road. Wolf
Oh,
pits.
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, if this was a listener request, please let me know. I'll give you a shout out. Like I said, I cannot remember where this one came from, but I know I knew nothing about it until I started researching it. And yeah,
It's pretty crazy.
yeah, that's pretty much all I've got, Kat.
Me too. If you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
Yeah, if you would like to help us keep the show going, you can do so at Patreon. You can find that link in the show notes.
And as always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
Whether you've been with us from day one or just tuned in, thank you.
You can join the Facebook group at Info on the Go.
Yeah, over there, let us know what you think about these green children from Woolpit.
Right. Ask us a question.
But whatever you do, wherever you're listening to this podcast from, make sure you hit that follow button.
Right. You can also send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
Leaving that review does help others find us. You can also email us at,
Info on the Go podcast at gmail.com.
and you can find that email link in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious.